All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Diane Gibbs, and I'm your host and this is Recharge. And today I'm so excited to have David Brier back. And if you haven't seen David's work, you will have probably known of him from some of the work he's done. You may not know him yet, but you will. And so I'm really excited to have y'all all here. And I hope that you guys really enjoy it. And here we go. David, give us a little bit of your background. And for some reason, just so you guys know, there's a chat. I believe it's over here for y'all. And for some reason, I can't see it. So I'm going to do my best to see if I can pull that up. But David, give us a little bit of your background. You're a branding expert. Damon Johns from Shark Tank has called you a branding guru. You have lots of great. You write for Forbes, Business Insider. You do all this amazing stuff. So give us a little bit of your background. And then we'll jump into some other questions.
Okay, very cool. So, as you know, I'm pretty known for my introductory line, which is that I was born in New York at a very young age, and I'm a native New Yorker, and I've been doing this for about 30 years, which makes me around 34 years old. I started at a very, very young age, and essentially, what I did is having started out as a specialist in logo design and brand identity in New York City, that started to grow and evolve when I really saw what clients needed to really start to make the proper dent that they should be making. You know, the goal is never, as designers and as branding specialists, our goal is never to just sort of, okay, here's a piece, and then best of luck. You know, I mean, of course, one always starts their career wherever they start, but there was that factor of recognizing that there could be more. There could be a greater output, greater effect had for clients, and that is what I do, and I do it, you know, passionately, and I do it enthusiastically, and I'm very, very, I'm excited about what we're talking about today because it's not something I see talked about a lot, which is the subject of brand vocabulary, which itself, it is like, what are all the pieces that go into a brand being recognized? And when I see it online, or if I see it different places, is it consistent? Does each piece build on the other to really engage me and keep me confident in knowing who I am dealing with as a company, whether I'm shopping for something, or whether it's business to business or business to consumer? It doesn't matter. It's still, you have a brand vocabulary that makes it all possible, and that either helps the client or doesn't.
And you've done stuff like this before, but this, you told me, this project took you 15 months, and this was the biggest branding project that you had ever really undertaken. And it had, we've all worked with systems, and we've done system manuals for a brand, but really you were developing, this was a co-op, a grocery store co-op.
Well, it's actually, just two little details. I'm just going to interject. Is the one? It's definitely the most comprehensive. Biggest is one of those funny words because I've done brands that have been global, I've done brands that have been regional, different. But right. In terms of comprehensive, it definitely spans so many different areas, as we'll see. But also, it's a consumer cooperative. There's different types of cooperatives, and under this umbrella of the consumer cooperative, they have a number of convenience stores, and they have a number of actual grocery stores, and so. It's very, very interesting to really breathe life, and it's been around since 1935. That's the thing. It has a lot of history.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So, and you don't always do this. I know you've done it with some of your other brands. You're really good. You're a great designer because you really take on what the brand needs to be instead of what you want to do. And I think that's a huge thing for a lot of designers. I think good designers, that's what they do. So, but you really got to put some hand-drawn type in this, and your typography is always great. But this was a really big typographic undertaking, to be honest.
Yes. This was kind of like saying, you know what, I think I write the Bible. It's kind of like, and just sort of like, I think today I'll write the Bible. It was just kind of that order of thing. But it was very, very interesting because there's almost a little bit of a dichotomy. One is that while it's incredibly comprehensive, it felt very native. It was like putting on a suit that was like, oh, this fits me perfectly. This was something very native to me. I mean, I love a community-based organization. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm a complete foodie, and so I'm really into food. And I love the consumer experience. I love the consumer experience. That's the thing that I really get jazzed about. Is like, how do I get somebody to really walk out happier? How do I get somebody to walk out more excited, more informed, more engaged than when they walked in? You know, and because a lot of what we're going to be looking at is very much that sort of in-store shopping experience, which can apply to anything. Even though this is very definitively a retail setting, what we're going to see would apply to any business, because it's just a matter of, well, that happens to be the series of touch points that are very prevalent. But you know, so other touch points for a company might be online, might be a combination of things, might be the kinds of things where people see vehicles driving by, different types of media. So it's just a matter of the different touch points.
So how long have you been doing, or when did you start doing hand-drawn type? Was it tons of years ago? Was it recently?
There were still cavemen roaming the streets of New York. Basically, a little better dressed than what you see like in some of these animated movies, but essentially. When I was completing college, I mean, I studied with Ed Bengat. For those that have been around a while, they know Ed Bengat. I studied with Ed Bengat. We became friends. I used to go over to his house in Jersey, and we would hang out and talk. He was into jazz. I was into jazz, different things of that nature. But I studied with Ed. I studied with a few other people who were from the school. For those that have been around, they know the name Herb Lubalin, who was like a god as far as design. I was fortunate to actually have one meeting with Herb once, but it was from that point, seeing what was possible, I started to then say, okay, I have to learn the craft so that I can also bring that to the table. And so it was basically while I was still in college.
Huh. Awesome. So, all right, you've helped many companies rebrand. Why is this project different? Was it just because we're not going to use big, but was it just its comprehensiveness in nature, or what?
Well, it was because there's lots of layers to different brands. Okay, some brands are like some brands have a certain sort of, okay, there's a certain let's say the number of layers to the brand. This had so many layers deep that it was very, very it was great to see. But that meant on different levels, visually and graphically, and just in terms of what was being said, there had to be different types of discussions. There had to be different types of dialogue. So, and I don't know, I don't know if you might want to show some like the one where to give like the brand vocabulary, the sort of map. That would probably be helpful for people to see, because right now all they have is my word, and they don't know me. They might not know me from Adam.
Do you want me to the big thing that you sent me, or all the images that we have that we're going to go through?
I would say the big one, just to give an overview, so people can go, oh, this what he's saying really isn't fluff. There actually is some substance to it.
Okay, so so here it is. And you tell me what you want me to zoom in on, and we can go through it like that.
Sure, that's fine. Let's see. And I'm going to see it on the screen, I take it?
Yes, you should see it. Maybe. Hope I can't tell if nobody can see it, because
I'm not seeing it. All right. Right now I see you. I see you.
Okay. Well.
I see. Oh, that little graphic. Do I if I click on that, do I then see it bigger?
Yes.
Okay.
Should be.
And yeah, good. Okay, I see that. Very good.
Okay.
So yeah, so basically, if people are looking at that and seeing that, they'll see in the top left, they'll see the primary format. Then, if you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see the secondary formats on the left. You'll see that there are 3 variations of that. Okay, that was just like the basic core brand. Now, if you scroll back to the top, and to the icons. Okay, the icons and graphic elements. So this was to give different bits and pieces. We knew that there were going to be certain things we were going to talk about. So those specifically are different types of icons, different types of language points, little visual dingbats, the little graphic elements. That started to work. But then now, if we were to go in the store, you would actually have what would be the first thing people would experience would be department branding. So if you scroll a little bit to your left, Diane, so we can see the department branding with the butcher and the produce and the kitchen. We can see those a little. There we go. And then if you could just scroll down on those just a little bit, and just for people to see, these were some of the departments. So like people then went, oh, if I want some produce, I go there. If I want a kitchen, go there. Flour, cheese, fish market, etc. Those are some of those. Okay, those are not all of those. Those are some. Then let's scroll back out. Let's zoom back out, and then you'll see below it, you'll see the destination branding. Okay, and if we scroll down, before we go there, let me just look there. There's 4 fonts that made up. The 4 fonts made up, like, those were the core ones. Those are not the only ones, but those were the core ones that started to really become the stable points, as you see in the graphics. Those became the stable points. Now you scroll down to the destination branding, because in each department you had destinations. You might be looking for smokehouse meats. You might be looking for pizza, sushi, different things. All of these were, so this helped the shopper experience all these. And again, these are some, not all. And so as we scroll down on those, then you would see product-specific ones, and this is specific to the produce area. And if you look at those, there are probably about 60 or 70 of those. So this just represents a handful, okay? And all of these were custom-made to really have a beautiful look, and the whole inspiration and feel behind it was to capture a certain authenticity, and as a result, that chalkboard feel. And the aesthetic, and specifically knowing that the black sort of treatment would allow items to pop, and it would also work to really stand out in the store environment itself. And then if you scroll down a little bit further, where you see the miscellaneous branding, those again, that's just a small sampling. That's a crumb. That's one crumb of the sampling of the miscellaneous branding. There's all varieties of components. There are static clings that go on displays. There are other types of signs. Bags. There's totally bags. There's wrapping paper. There's beautiful little elements that go around the store that advise the little shelf talkers that say gluten-free or natural or organic or a local product. There's product descriptors, all various things. But that just gives an idea. Now that gives you a sense of this brand vocabulary. There's a personality to it. There's a consistency to it, even though there's a lot of range and a lot of typographic little elements, a lot of graphic elements, but there is a certain definitive aesthetic, and there's a language, and there's a personality that is unmistakable. So that just gives people an overview. So,
where did you start? And because it is a massive undertaking, and I know you started with a logo because you rebranded the logo, and I have some images that I'm going to show, pull up and show there, and I think it's really neat, and I will definitely use this for my students. And you wrote a blog post on it, so people can actually go and check it out. And Ashley, if you would post risingabovethenoise.com, that's David's website, and you can get an ebook there. There's going to be a link later. Ashley's going to post that, and then you can also get on his email newsletter, and you can follow his blog, and he's posting and writing and does all this great stuff and gives all these great visuals all the time. That's why I love having David on. But I'm going to pull up some images, and then you want to talk us through the logo. Is that where you started?
Well, that was definitely yes, that was definitely a key place.
Okay. All right, so I think I have a before and after. So here.
Yeah, if you look at that does show you before and after. And just so it's understood, there was a strategic thing that we were looking at addressing. What we found was that not everybody knew that Mega was a co-op. Some people thought it was a regional chain. Some people thought it was a national chain. there's some different things that probably contributed to that perception, and so it was a matter of really seeing, okay, mega foods and liquor, and then so there was that from a strategy standpoint, but then also from a typographic standpoint, you'll get to see if you look at the mega on the left versus what the revamp of it. These actually show the changes because the mega itself needed to be revamped so it really worked in today's marketplace and was cleaned up to reflect, in addition to the co-op component. So here the M, the M was one element. I mean, that, and every letter was redrawn from scratch to really have the right cleanliness. Because for those that know typography, you look at the G in the previous one, and that could be a script J. It could be a lot of things. If the letter itself is really it's structured in such a way that it's not immediately clear what it is.
And the weights of the letters are so different. It's just maybe a poorly designed typeface, and you really cleaned it up. But I love all the stuff that you did with the curves and everything. But the exclamation point was so weak compared to the type on the left. So
yeah, it's kind of like excitement. That's kind of like the excitement, like I'm really excited. It's like, so it didn't totally have. Most exclamation points have some conviction. This one lacked a little bit.
So then you worked on the curves. You really analyzed what needed to happen. Can you talk a little bit about this one?
Yeah, well, I mean, basically, if you looked at it, it was rhythmically, it didn't hold. You had this big M. You had a very, very, very thin exclamation point. Then you had the mega, and things were overlapping unnecessarily. What was the rhythm and the spacing between them? And so I wanted to create a fluid rhythm. So even though the M still is asymmetrical, you see that there's an arching aesthetic to it.
And then there's some special areas that were maybe too thick, it looks like, or they didn't have enough definition, and you went in and really cleaned some of those things up.
Oh yeah, well they were inconsistent. They didn't flow. And they didn't define. Like you'll note that even just the tail on the A. That's the thing. The tail on the A was really an important point. And just getting the E. I mean, the E is such a beautiful letter that it's just to get it that, so it really is starting that mega. That was very, very important.
All right, and then we needed to kern. There was huge kerning problems. It became all one.
That's true. It's true. For those that are not familiar with the term kerning, that is the handling these spaces between the letters so that they actually have a correct relationship. And I actually remember from Ed Benguet, who I told you about earlier. I remember Ed always used to talk about kerning, and he said they have to have an equal degree. That you look at 3 letters at a time, and they have to have an equal degree of flirtation. Those 3 letters. And I always thought was a great description.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. Yeah. Okay, so then this is before and the after. Huge change, big difference.
Yep.
All right, and I'm going to take it back to you, or I'm going to ask you, so where did you start after this? After the rebrand of the logo, what was kind of the next step? Because you must have really had to plan this out.
Well, yes, but it was fairly organic. The CEO, Mike Buck, is awesome. Mike, we're very kindred spirits in how we approach. Being able to look at the big picture and look at the details, and really has been a joy. And so we'd sit down and I'll share a little bit of a secret, a little bit of a secret. As long as all the people listening and tuned in promise, they must in the chat box, they must say, I promise I will not tell anyone else. I got to see at least a few of those. It's going to be at least a few of those, and I've got to see. I just see hellos, but I see no promises. So what we have, just a bunch of liars on the listening? Come on, people! I want to see at least one person. I promise I will not tell anybody. Not a single person who's right. No one's gonna. They're gonna text it as soon. They're gonna tweet it. They're gonna do a selfie with it. They're gonna do something. All right. So here's the deal. All right. Knowing that everyone's this is gonna be everywhere tomorrow. One of the things that I started to do over the last 7 years was that I looked at a brand. A brand has an entire spectrum. Some brands are really focused on it. Really, you really need to get the core brand really defined because it's a mess, or it's unclear, or there are wrong perceptions in the industry. And so that's one thing. Then it's like, okay, then you have the business system, and then you have other places that starts to show up, and you might have literature, you might have online presence, different things, and then it goes into the farther reaches, where there might be multimedia applications or exhibits or all kinds of various applications or retail installations. Well, I look at that whole spectrum, and for each job, I kind of determine where's the correct was to get. Let's get a foundation. That was the mega co-op. Now with that, I looked at it and I was like, you know, there's a story that needs to be told here. And one of the things that Mike and I had established very early on, I said, there's a lot of things that you as a co-op do, but there are stories that aren't told, things that people don't know. And he absolutely said, yeah, it's totally true. We need to do a better job of telling our story. And I agreed. And so what I did was I went back and I created a video that captured the story. That's what I did. And then showed the logo at the end of that. That was actually how I showed it. Because outside of context, I felt that it could just be looked at, well, you know, it didn't have a context. In this particular case, now you actually understood and it walked someone through mega co-op's role in that community, and then it was a matter of people just, then he was like, wow. And he was able to see what I saw. So part of it becomes, what's my role and responsibility in getting my client to understand my vision, and that's how I basically achieved it there.
You use video a lot, and again, I encourage people to follow you on your blog because you share a lot of things. You've done some things in Tennessee recently. You've done, I mean, you're always all over the United States at least, and you do make a lot of videos. There's a lot of power in telling that story visually, because I think most people understand video and they can access it, like in their brain it makes sense, and more so than just a printed out story or a storyboard or something. Why do you think that is?
I would say, give me that last part of the question again, just so I want to make sure I'm answering your exact question.
Why do you think people are able to connect with a video maybe better than they are with like a storyboard? Because you could show a client a storyboard and it's not as impactful. It definitely takes more time and more effort to create a video, but maybe it's worth it.
Okay, I'll tell you exactly why. And by the way, I did see that some people said, I will not tell anyone else. You know, another person said, I will, help me God. I'm not sure what it was. And then then Jen said, it's top secret, which is great. And anyway, but I did get some I promises. So thank you for all those I promises. So the answer to that is, I know that we each are completely and utterly bombarded with much more communications than we can deal with. And I also know that when I show things and review things, there's only two modes that a client is going to be in. One is they're going to sit back and think, which is the worst scenario because they never otherwise sit back and think. That's not how people experience stuff. People don't walk into a store or go online to look and think. They must experience. So how do I bypass that inclination to sit back and think? The way I do that is I will, if this is the appropriate thing, I'll take a video, because that's my opportunity and responsibility to immerse them in the story that I am wanting to tell. It gets them to stop thinking and actually experiencing. I've had clients look at a video. And actually, I had one client I recently did this with a few months ago, cried. At the end, they actually started pulling out Kleenex and wiping their ears. They were so emotionally moved. How can I get that? A storyboard couldn't get that. That's too analytical. That's too much of a process and blah, 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 blah. I need to immerse them, just the way I would expect a shopper or a customer of theirs to be immersed. That's the same thing I need to do for them. So that's my job in presenting it responsibly.
Okay, so since I can't see the chat,
And Jason said, according to my wife, I never think. So thank you very much, Jason.
So there are, Ashley is reading the chat for me and sending me questions to be able to ask you. So Salvio is in Brazil, and he wants you to know that you have lots of fans there, and he wants to know what steps do you use when creating a brand? Like, does he have a formula? So that thing that you started with, that you showed us, this big thing, the typefaces and the icons and this kind of system that you created, is that how, and you said it kind of grew organically or it changed organically, you didn't have just a set plan. I'm going to go back to that. Is there a formula, a David Brier formula? You start with a video?
Well, let me put it this way. I'm gonna respond to this because about 28 years ago, I was speaking in Toronto at a conference, and this reminds me of a question I was asked. And someone said, "Oh, so which?" And specifically, I was talking about type and lettering. And there was a packed room, and what ended up happening was someone said, "Oh, so what are your top 5 favorite fonts?" This question reminds me of that because it was like because I knew as soon as they asked it, they wanted to know what are David Brier's top 5 favorite fonts. Now when I go back to the office, because I was obviously worked in a sort of corporate setting, so now if someone asks why are you using that, well, David Brier used that. I can see exactly where, and I was like whatever, But my response was knowledge. No, my response was rules enable one to follow. Knowledge enables one to lead. Okay, so the thing is that I will answer the question, but rules enable one to follow. Knowledge enables one to lead. That's why when I was describing the spectrum, a logo has a spectrum, and if you want a formula, for lack of a better description, I would say, okay, draw a spectrum. Have on the left, okay, here's the core brand. This is it's the name, that's the logo, it's the slogan. Then you have the business system. Then you have the expanding applications where this will surface and come up. Whether it's going to be in store, it's going to be online, or if it's going to be in the environment. And then it expands in terms of visibility and usage and application. Now, the interesting thing about that spectrum is that as you go from the left, where you have the core brand, to the right, that the widest spectrum, many companies will tend to actually have the least amount of control as it gets wider. In other words, a great example is social media. That's about as wide as you can get. I mean, I have some posts that get copied, 600,000, 1,000,000.2 times. I don't have control about that. I have the least amount of control, but it's the widest amount of potential visibility. It's an interesting dichotomy. But what I do is I look at that and I say, well, if I do have my core brand, at the left of the spectrum there, if I do have that established, then what's the area I need to tackle? What's the biggest part that is going to be the biggest potential source of trouble? Is there a missing story here? Is there a missing point of differentiation? And let me actually define that. Let me go over this one point for listeners. There's something that very few people understand. And it has to do with the definition of branding and why we brand at all. Okay? The thing is that we actually demand that things actually be different in some way. If they fail to actually differentiate themselves in some way, then they become commodities, and as a result, you and I, when we're shopping for whatever, will go, which one's cheaper? Right. And when we're doing which one's cheaper, that's because there's no differentiation. There's no real value distinction. Right. Now, so that's where branding comes in. Branding comes down to a 4-word definition. 4 words. The art of differentiation. That's what we're doing. If someone is doing design without that clearly in mind, I would basically tell you that their design solutions will be compromised because they don't know why they're doing it. It might look nicer. It might be prettier. It might do certain things, but it will not totally hit at that other end of the spectrum and do as much of a special job as it can. So here you go.
Simon Sinek talks about start with why, and I
start with why.
You are great at doing that and getting that story, and you've done that over and over and over with tons of your clients. You've branded them, gotten them focused, and really you are telling their story. So we're going to get to this because this is a It's a beautiful, beautiful pieces. So, which area did you start with? Did you start on the icons
The
after?
icons. Yep, the icons. The icons were a very, very organic place to start. And if you scroll up, you'll see. You keep scrolling, and you'll start to see the icons. I know that they're toward the top.
Yep.
Yeah, there we go. So, for example, you look at the catering. You look at you look at these. So the thing is that I looked. What are the core areas that needed to actually have representation? You know, that that craft beer was available. And the thing was you'll notice, just stay on this one for a second, you'll see born in Eau Claire. That was another introduction in terms of the brand language, was the fact that it's like if we had people that didn't know that this was one, they didn't know it was a co-op, and then two, might have thought it was actually a national chain. Like, whoa, we really need to define where are we. This started in 1935 in Eau Claire. Eau Claire's the name of the city in the Midwest. So this started in Eau Claire. So it wasn't like it wasn't raised in Eau Claire. It wasn't this. It wasn't This was born in Eau Claire. So that was one thing we wanted to be real clear about. So it's the mega co-op born in Eau Claire, to really cement that. And that you'll see in each one of these pieces. But here you start to see the typography that I started to establish. What was the basic feel to get that? And I wanted to establish this iconography so that it really worked to define these different places that you could go within the actual store and give it a sense of personality.
I love this one with the holes.
Yeah, you know?
But it really has a feel of inviting. It has a feeling of warmth. And when you see these on the signs, I think it takes on a whole nother life. So you did the icon and on the ads, because you're using, they really work differently but so well. This ad is one of, or I guess I don't know what it is, but with the carrots, I'll show it in a minute. But that is like, I mean, I don't even really like grilled carrots, but I would like those grilled carrots because they look so good.
Yep, totally.
So then this one's kind of it being used. Yeah.
I mean, that showed that gives an idea of that starts to show how this actually shows up on packaging, where the craft colored paper backdrop behind the logo, that really identifies the identity, and then product would actually be below that. And so, it's just it's great.
So then when did you, after you did the icons, then did you go to the big directional signs? Did you go to the smaller ones with illustrations? Where was your next?
There were smaller. There were certain ones that were. After that, then it was a matter of starting to look at, okay, what are the destination points? What are the actual points that people need to go to? We know we have these established destination points, and then it was a matter of looking, okay, what are, and actually click, if you would, right where you are. If you would click in the middle, where you have the cheese and the chicken on the left there, that one.
Oh, okay.
That people can see those signs in application. They get the sense of how these actually were used. So you get the sense that a certain color palette is it's very clear. Plus, also, we wanted to make it. There was another part of it. Did people really know that there's a kitchen here? It's not just like salads and different things that are available, but there's a kitchen, and there's cheese, and there's produce, and there's all these bits and pieces. So that was where all of this was to make it just unmistakable. There were other ones from another angle. And then you started. Then it was a matter of there's before we hung it up. It was one night we were working with the installer, and there it was. It's like, okay, there it is. Before it actually fully gets hung for all to see.
But what I love is that you didn't just have a standard kind of background. That each one has different colors. This has wood back there. I mean, You're really take that extra mile, and you prove to them, you get your clients on board, and I think sometimes that's one of the hardest things, but maybe it's because you do that story in the beginning, they trust you, and I think the trust, they want to see their story come across the way you told it. But you're using wood behind this cheese board, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, if you can't use wood behind a cheese board, what can you do?
So, but the sushi's very different, and it really stands out. I think it's one of the only ones with red.
Well, yeah, because of the Asian that culture. I mean, I wanted it to really because, and actually, I'll tell you the inspiration. The inspiration for this one. I mean, it was very interesting because one day, after a meeting, I was downstairs and they had all these bits, all these sushi options, and so I was like, oh, I saw one that I liked, and I was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to get my wife the same one. And so I'm looking and looking, and they see me looking without picking something up, and so one of the employees comes over and says, well, can I help you? I said, well, I found this one. I'm looking for another one so I can bring my wife the same thing. And she looks, and she can't find it either. She says, well, we'd like us to make it for you. And I'm like, you make sushi here? I knew that they made sushi here, but that I could get it made to order and wait for it? I knew that it was made there because I always would see them doing it. But that I could say, well, I would like 2 of these or 10 of these or whatever, that they can make it. I was shocked. So I was like, that story has to be told. Because I'm crazy as a foodie. I will find, if something can be found, I will find it. If some great little value can be discovered, I will discover it. Some special thing that people can do. So I didn't know. I knew that others could not know. It was just impossible. And so I wanted to really capture that, and that's why you see at the top, you see it says made fresh, made to order, and you've got that beautiful thing of sushi, but the red is just the perfect, it looks like the kind of thing you might see on an outfit, or and it just, anyway, that was just the perfect solution.
All right, so what were these on? That, because it does have that chalkboard feel. Was it just printed, or was that a texture, or
it was a textured backdrop that I had created so as to create the whole aura and feel of a chalkboard environment. And then it was a matter of me with fonts that I would customize, work with, customizing borders, customizing just different arches and flourishes and banners to really have that chalkboard flavor.
Right.
That was the whole objective. I knew that I could get there, and I have the most obscene collection of fonts probably in America. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's ridiculous. I remember reading something about Massimo Vignelli, who said you really only need 5 fonts, and I'm sorry. I mean, he and I, on that regard, we were absolutely 180 degrees opposed philosophically.
Well, and even these have great. I mean, the fonts are great, and I think that your type choice and treatment are terrific. But what I want people to know is that you also went in and you did some hand-drawn type on their glass cases, which I'll show in a minute. But the illustrations, these illustrations have kind of a woodcut kind of feel and that's kind of different from the other, like the grapes and the onions and things like that. But it's really nice because they're subtle and they're kind of in the background. Background.
Yeah, exactly. Bada boom. Bada boom.
Clicking through some. So you really were consistent with the border, and there were some arches. There were certain like shapes that you kind of were consistent with that I think help, as well as the limited color palette. I think was great. And here's one where you're actually drawing in, and that you take the time to do all of that, and then you took the time to do it yourself instead of just having somebody. I think that, again, shows that you're so invested with the client, and I think that's amazing.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, well, it was a matter of there is an art to typography. There is a personality. There's also a matter of what we're controlling the dialogue. What is the bit and piece of this that we need to really show people, so that they really understand the dialogue of what we're talking about. Right. And so that's why with the produce, yes, those were really very focused on the imagery of the product, the item, that food item, and food is so gorgeous but yet how do I create a look and a feel that is unique? I didn't want something strictly photographic. I didn't want something that looked too obviously vintage, but I wanted something in the middle there, and finding and creating that for that whole series, that was perfect for that whole area. And it was just really interesting because early on, one of the concerns that was raised was, there's a lot of black in this. Is this going to work? And I said, well, so I had to basically, my response was, there's a lot of color and things shouting for one's attention within the store environment itself. That's the context. If this were a very monochromatic store, I would not have recommended what I recommended, but it allowed the type to shine out, and it looked like a cohesive story, different chapters to a story, rather than something that was so different, where bang, this is screaming for your attention, bang, that's screaming for your attention. And sometimes I use the analogy, what if I went into a store and 15 customer representatives hit me all at once, each with their own style and their own degree of volume and their own voice and their own pitch and their own this? I would go crazy and I'd walk right out the store. So I said, but if they all sort of, embraced me in some way, that would be great. And this was another. See, I found that the 3D type here was the very, very important part. Creating the 3D with like what's for dinner. That was, that was what's for dinner tonight. I needed something that for 3D that kind of worked, and that started to really give it a unified feel for what are we talking about on these, and what percentage of the case gets actually used.
Right.
So that you actually get to see the product, and you get to look and go, I want those meatballs. I want that chicken. I want that stuff.
So the green thing is probably a vinyl sticker or something.
Yep,
and then
that's right.
You pulled the white with your white pin.
Yep.
And then here's kind of it from a little bit further back. But you're right. Again, the case has black, and then now there is a ton vying for my attention at stores. I think black was a great solution, but they already had black in there, like in the back of you didn't tell them, hey, let's redo your rolls. They already had trays that were black, so you're taking in what you already see. So
yeah,
I think that's great.
Exactly. Cool, thank you. This one was just a lot of fun. This one was just a blast.
The fresh baked one?
Oh, freshly baked. Oh, I mean, it's like if I'm going to freshly bake something, I'm going to celebrate it, and that is just sort of just so out the top. Man, freshly baked. That if I didn't know that then before, I'd certainly know now.
Well, let's look at some of the ones that are part of with the illustrations, because the type is very illustrative, and then you have on the big signage, which we'll look at in a minute. But this really this is probably the most colorful area of where you utilize color in the signage, it seems like to me.
Yeah. Well, it was just a matter of, to me it was just, these were these horizontal sign points that needed to tell different stories, and they have so many different types of tomatoes, and yet there are certain tomatoes that were with avocados, and so it's like, okay, there's tomatoes with salsa fixings, and then there's, if you look to the right a little farther away, is tomatoes with salad fixings, and those had other different bits and pieces. I think there were garlic cloves and other things. The onions, I love the onion one. I just thought was just fun. I loved how the onions worked, in front of and behind the actual letters themselves to really give this playful sense of things.
Right. And then potatoes, and
I've never been so excited about a spud in my life.
They're really beautiful. So let me. These are some more in-store, and we have better the flat ones so that we can kind of see them. But I really like how they're shown in store. So I'm going to click through this, and I definitely want you to talk about this one, because this is the second most colorful one, I guess. That and the sushi. Do you want to talk a little bit about this one?
Well, the thing here was, the idea of what. There are different places that one can tell the story, and when you get into a sign such as this, I know you're looking to find the flat. There's a flat version. Now so what you see here, like I've got chalk renderings on the lower right and lower left, but you know, my whole objective was I wanted these signs to be clean, not messy. And so how could I actually convey soup and salad and the ingredients that go into soup and salad without taking up more visual real estate? And so that's where this became the solution to have the beautiful. Unfortunately, there's not a close-up. I don't think there's a close-up detail.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, hold on one second.
Here, I can zoom in.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Zoom in. That's perfect because then the viewing audience can really see. This is just sick. This is just fabulously wonderful how it all worked and all that detail. It's just wonderful. It really engages the viewer. It tells you everything without having to use up more real estate than the words themselves. And so and this also gives everyone the opportunity to see the border. That border became a consistent element that unified all the different types of signs, and that and I created the border, and then I basically distressed it so that it was really roughened up and would work as a component.
So Carlos
has a question.
Is it suitable for a brand strategist to plan for a brand from its graphics to voice to its propagation channels?
Plan for a brand from its graphics to voice to... to me, there's a missing step there. You don't plan it from graphics to voice to propagation channels, in my mind. In my experience, you have to go, okay, strategically, what do we need to say? Okay, strategically, who are we? Strategically, who cares? I mean, these are the questions that I ask myself and I ask my clients. It's okay, who are we? Who are we to whom? Who are we going to be important to? Who are we going to be important as opposed to another alternative? Okay, because for example, no brand exists by itself. There's not a single brand that exists by itself. Even the great brands have competition. But how do you go about creating? Why are we going to matter in the scheme of all these things? So those are the questions that I ask first, and then having answered those, can one only get into the actual, and that to me then those are voice issues. Who are we? How do we sound? Then we can start, and that to me it's like the bones. Mm-hmm. Then we can put the meat on top of it. The meat here is the graphics. The meat. Now those are the delivery elements that help make the message possible to be understood at the receipt end of the dialogue.
So, David, how much had you done with signage and environmental graphics before? Because this was a lot of different things, and you had to use a lot of different materials, and viewing distances, and there's all kinds of things that go into environmental graphic design, and especially for a store that had such a high ceiling.
Yeah. Which was tough for me since I defy gravity. Oftentimes I would walk in and I would just float straight to the top, and so they had to get a hook and bring me down. It was kind of embarrassing, but you deal with it.
Right. but how were you? I mean, how much had you dealt? I mean, could somebody else kind of plan on actually doing this, finishing this in 15 months, or is it because of so much experience doing environmental graphics that you knew, hey, I can put it on this kind of metal thing and get a welder to put it together, and then we'll hang these signs? Or
the amount. I mean, I've worked on various aspects in terms of exhibits and stuff like that, but I wouldn't say so heavily that I walked in with years and years and years of environmental or exhibition graphics to know, oh, this will be this will be that, this will be that, because each project is so unique, and plus each floor stand. I mean, there were, I don't know, there's 5, 6, 7 different types of floor stands. So each one we had to select what's our material, what's going to be the unifying element. So obviously we used black metal. So that wouldn't distract from the store, wouldn't distract from the signs, and so all of those elements were very, very consciously chosen. But for anything, like while there are certain, jumping points, you end up really having to go out and really customize each one as the situation comes up.
And really, if you do enough research, you could find some other options. And sometimes, if you're new to it, you'll come up with options that somebody who's been doing it a long time wouldn't, because it's so ingrained in them. This is how you do things.
That's right. That's right.
So these kind of stick down. It was like a metal stand. You didn't have anything big from the side. Was that a challenge, just to how are all these going to be displayed?
Well, no, it's just a matter of like working out a system. But the thing that would not be immediately apparent to the viewers is that these signs, all these signs with products, like meaning breads, buns, fruits, vegetables, different things like that, those all had slots in the side, so we could actually swap them out. So if things came up that were new or different, or seasonal, we could do those. So that's the great thing about these, is that you go, wow, you know, it gave all the structure, the necessary structure, but all the necessary freedom.
Oh, nice. So then, if they need something new, you can just keep creating it.
Exactly.
As you go.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go through some more of the in-store kind of displays.
Yeah, this one was just I mean, these two like together were just, you know, I mean, but even see, a lot of it is working out. Like, you know, we could have said, you know, blah 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 cheese, but instead I was looking at the language. It's like, let there be cheese. You know, let there be cheese. I mean, at that point, I expect Moses to be standing there and say, let there be cheese. You know, and the big C behind them parts, you know, and fresh from the farm, and sweet corn, and just all of these components, really having them really convey that yumminess. People are seeing, so people understand the scale. All of these vegetables and such are being seen probably 2 to 3 times the size they actually are. So it brings that beauty. It brings a sense of scale to the whole dialogue.
Yeah, these are beautiful.
And but even this, like, do you hear that? That's the sound of delicious.
It's those extra little touches that you always do in your designs that I think makes it. It's the flavor. You're adding, instead of just plain, you definitely give it a lot of flavor.
It's true. I mean, vanilla is so overrated.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the ads, or how did you add these to the brand strategy, and then how are they different? And I'm going to go to them real quick. I'm going to go to you, and then I'm going to go down to my photo stream and then get to it.
I hope that Carlos, I didn't see any more chat things, but I hope that Carlos got his question answered, and I know that he had that. And I don't see if any others, or if they're just engaged. I mean, these are some different points. These are some different points that are going to be used, you know, in store, and some will be used online, and some will be used on social media, and so really, you know, like you know, to me, it's like, man, if I saw that, I'd be like, I want those.
Yeah.
I want those. I want those in my salad now. You know, and what's the next one? I mean, this whole series is.
Oh, the bakery is really nice, and you can tell that you're thinking about these either long, skinny, or tall banner kind of things, so that it goes, oh, and this one I thought was beautiful. I hate for vegetarians, sorry about anybody who's out there, but there's 2 images, and it looks like the same piece of steak with the rosemary, and it's beautiful. And then you got the little butcher thing in the background, and just the photography is incredible.
Thanks.
This is
in my office. You know, and I knew that I would never have another opportunity to lay these out for anybody to get a sense of scale. And so, and by the way, I'm just going to interrupt because I see that Carlos is saying he missed the answer. Carlos, listen back. Everything I'm saying is worth a second listen. So, Carlos, listen back. I spent probably about 8 minutes answering your question. So I'm sorry you missed it, but do listen back. I do give you an actual thoughtful response to your question, which I think you'll find useful.
How long did these illustrations take you, David?
Well, I was very, very, very fortunate. I spent such a lengthy many hours to with a particular agency that I work with, and just it was a matter of, because if I basically had to, if all of these had to be created just all from scratch, that would have been I don't know, that would have been impossible. I may have had to reconsider my career.
Well, you did a great job art directing, and because they come across as a single.
Oh, they are, absolutely. No, that was the thing. Is like, I mean, I worked very heavily with the agency that I work with to really have a unified look.
So are these replaceable too? Are they like slide in, or are these more?
No.
Okay.
No, these particular ones are not. I mean, they can be. You know, I mean, if all of a sudden it becomes, you know, like for example, I just went for the first time. I had to go to Seattle this past weekend, and then I went to the market. The what's it
The
called?
fish market.
The Pine Avenue Market, I think. Pine something market. And anyway, yeah, it's where they have fish and stuff. They had things I'd never seen. They had lobster mushroom, which I'd never seen. It looks like lobster. They had chanterelle mushrooms. They had the most unbelievable porcini mushrooms at $39.95 a pound. And I was astonished. I was like, wow, look at these. I mean, they were just gorgeous. They were stunning. And so, you know.
Well, I'm gonna click through, and Ashley, I'm gonna get you to, if you can, share David's website again. There's also everybody can get the ebook, and I'm gonna show that in just a second. And then I had picked one other.
Hello. Ah, Pike Place.
We talk about it in a video where it's really, a lot of people will do before the sale, a lot of people will do during the sale. But there is a third component to what we do as designers with clients, and also with our clients to their customers, that a lot of people are missing. Can you touch on that while we walk through these visuals?
Absolutely. So the basic thing is that many companies will focus on, okay, what's the stuff we need to do before the sale? You know, we need to promote, we need to have a look, we need to do this, we need to do that, a website, blah, 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 blah. That's the before. Everyone does the before, to some extent. They either do it well or they do it badly, but they always do it. Then there's during the sale, which, again, they either do it well or they do it badly. But that if it's a retail scenario, okay, they're doing it where they're actually, you know, what's the experience like? How are people treated? What are things easy to find? Are things hard to find? Are things orderly? Are they things chaotic?
Right.
What's all of that? Or, you know, the same thing. Could be an online experience. Could be a whatever. But however it is, and if you're, let's say, if you're a consultant or a designer, it's like, are you helpful or are you not helpful? Are you systematic? How do you actually approach it? But the thing, and now most though consider that that's the entirety of the actual thing, until, you know, once the person, let's say, has gone, yep, you know, they've signed on or they've agreed or they've made their purchase, and then that's it. Now that, some people think that that's 100% of the actual experience. That's actually only 66%. The entire third is left off the table, which is after the sale, when you and I, as shoppers or clients, customers, in store, online, least expect it. And the thing is that after the sale, what if you actually wrote? I mean, I had one client, perfect example. I had one client who did this. I learned they had a 100% online business, and it was all for women, for their baby showers, for their bridal showers, for all these milestones in their life. And once the sale was made, that was it. I said, I want you in the next month to handpick, you know, however many orders you can comfortably do this with. I want you. I designed a fold-over letter, no, actually a fold-over card, and I said, I want you to hand write 7 days after the order's been placed, not typeset, hand write a note saying, "Dear Sheila, how was your baby shower? You know, would love to know, and did so and so like their blah 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 blah," and then you sign it. They got so much response just from doing that alone, because it was not who writes anymore. 2, who takes the time to get that personal? 3, it's not automated. 4, it wasn't done on email, which everybody does, so now you're separating yourself out, you're differentiating. So all those things, an incredibly effective thing. Super simple, took time, people got writer's cramp and all that kind of stuff, whatever. You work it out, figure it out. how to implement it. That's just a matter of execution. But that's the thing.
I think these are a great showing after the sale as well, because
Absolutely.
this is at home. It could have totally just been the regular brown plastic. I also think, so I think the butcher paper with the brand, with the icons, are really nice, because you might not have noticed, something that was going on in the store. And there's one other thing that I think is an after that does not happen at most places, so I'm going to go try to find it. And it's this, the meat bag, or the cheese bag. Because this doesn't happen at most places. It is a clear bag that is not really a good sturdy bag, and you can smell through it sometimes. But this is a good sturdy bag with a brand that it's branded. And
the thing that's fun too. Here's the thing that's fun. You'll appreciate this. It's like, so I got deli meats and I got deli cheeses, and I want to keep this simple in terms of color, right? So because of the printing technique. Well, the thing that most people probably are you able to zoom in a little bit?
Yep.
Let's see what we have here. See, oh, okay, you can see it pretty well. So if you center that, what you can't necessarily see it here, but it's clear on the bag. Is that okay? I have the little etching of the cheese at the bottom of the cheese, but for the meats, that is an extended, elongated salami that has the little things at the end. So it's a salami, and of course I'm playing with words there, where it says buy the slice, buy the pound, right? And so, but that was so we have a symbol that represents the meats portion, and then we obviously have the etching for the cheese portion. So it just again gives you an idea of just all these little bits and pieces to really tell the story and have fun.
Right. And I love that about it. It makes it so much richer. It's like those things that you don't see until you're so ingrained in a brand sometimes, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I never noticed that. So I think there was so much stuff like that. Well, David, we're out of time, so I want to make sure that Ashley is going to share there's a link on his site to get the free ebook, and I think Ashley will be able to share that in a second, and then hopefully she's shared your Instagram and Twitter.
Yep, she shared the link for the free ebook, and then also Instagram, and then also Twitter as well. And so it looks like Ashley has shared all of these. And the thing about this that I'll tell you that's great, the Lucky brand, it actually is, it's 10 golden rules on branding to outshine, outperform, and outlast your competition. I intentionally kept it very intentionally brief. Okay, so that each golden rule is a page, and it's very immediately applicable. I've had people send me back, thank you. This is the stabilizing thing for me at this point in my career, whether they were working in a company, whether they were on the creating side of brands or designers or whatever. So it's just one of those very, very easy to read, a great reference piece.
And you're always doing that. I don't know how you have time to do all this, but you are creating work for clients, and you're going to meetings, you're doing all these things, you're making videos, you're traveling all over the country to do this, but then you also actually have a passion for sharing what you've learned with other designers. Your SlideShare, and Ashley, you should have this link too. It's slideshare.net/Brierman. And I think I picked a specific one, but then you guys can follow him there, because he's continually sharing this information on that platform as well. And
it's sick. That part, it's a good point, because last I checked, I have over 715,000 views worldwide, which is just crazy.
Yeah.
So next milestone is 1 million. We got to get to 1 million people. Everyone listening, just go crazy over the next 48 hours. Let's take it to 1 million.
That's awesome. Well, so David, thank you so much for being on the show, and thank you guys for all joining. You've signed up. You'll get email for next week. It's a weekly program helping designers, and next week we're going to talk with a programmer. A lot of times designers who do a lot of hand-done stuff, or they do more illustrations, maybe they don't want to do web, and or video even, it can be scary to kind of think about a new platform. And we're going to have Rob Davarinia. I don't ever know how to say his last name, and I talk to him all the time on the phone, but I don't ever ask him his last name, so I'll get it before next week. But Rob is amazing, and he's a programmer, but he has a heart for design, and he actually answers the phone, and he's just such an amazing programmer that he helps you see your vision, and he has a good eye for what's missing. Like, he knows what I'm going to say, hey, you know, that letting's off or something, and he knows the terminology. So he'll be on next week, and we're booked until December 10th, and then I'm taking a little bit of time off, so, or for December. So you guys, thank you so much for coming. Maybe Ashley will share my contact. You can watch any old episodes. This is the third time David's been on, so you can catch old episodes at designrecharge.org. You can email me, and I'll send you the links if you want at diane@designrecharge.org, and you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at designrecharge, or at Diane Gibbs AU on Twitter if you want. I'll answer either one of those, and Facebook as well. Just look up Design Recharge. But David, thank you so much, and I am so excited. We didn't get through all the questions, but we'll have to have you back on. But you're always creating new stuff, so I just really appreciate you. You're excellent, and thank you.
Oh, absolutely, Diane. Thank you, and thank you for your continued enthusiasm and help, and just continuing to educate others. It's very valuable.
All right. Well, thank you, and I will see y'all next week. Bye.
Bye.